Hello everyone, welcome to another video. In this video, I will be teaching you how you can extract the XML data, or we can say how you can parse a XML document using a Python programming language. So I have taken a two XML file. So the name of the first file is xmldocument.xml and the name of the other file is book.data. For some code, we will be referring xmldocument.xml, and for some code, we will be using a bookdata.xml. Okay, if you see it closely, then in the XML document, we have a ID attribute inside the tag, and for the book data we don't have any ID attribute or any other attribute for the tag. Now let's learn the 6 different ways how we can extract the data present in this XML document. So now let's learn the first method to extract or to parse the XML data. So over here we will be using a elementary module. So in order to use that, we have to first import that. Okay, so for that we have used a import statement followed by the module name, and we have used et as an alias. Now if you wanted to use any method or function that is specified inside this library, then we can simply use a et followed by the method that we wanted to use. Now once we import the library that we wanted to use, the next thing we have to do is we have to create a elementary object. For that we can use a parse methods present in the elementary library, and as an argument we are passing the name of the file. Okay, over here we are using a XML document file. This parse method read the XML file and create a tree-like structure representing the XML data. Once we pass the XML data, the next thing we have to do, we have to get the root element. So for that we are using a getRoot method. So this method return the element which is nothing but a top level element in the XML document. So once we have the top level element, we can simply iterate over the item present in the XML document. So for that we will be using a for loop, and in order to find the all the item present in the XML document, we can simply use find all method, and in order to get the item we have to specify the tag which is nothing but the item. So now we will be iterating to each item present in this. Okay, so first we will be reading this item, after that we will be reading this item. Now as we read, we need to get ID attribute and also the values present inside the tag. In order to get the ID attribute, we can use a get method followed by the attribute that we wanted to read from the XML data. So now once we read that, we are saving it inside the ID. After that, once we read the ID attribute, the next thing we have to do is we have to read these values, names and price. For that we can simply use a find method, and we have to specify the tag. Now in order to get the value, we have to specify dot text. This way we can extract the data which is inside the tag. And finally we can use a print statement, and we can use this variable to print the values present in it. Now if we run this code onto the Python terminal, we can get the value present inside this XML data. Now let's see the second approach in order to parse an XML data. So over here we will be using a mini-DOM library. Okay, so in order to use that, you have to first import that, and once you import that, you can use a parse method present inside this mini-DOM library. So this line create a DOM object representing the entire XML document. For the previous code we have used XML document in order to pass the data, but for this we will be using a book data. Once we do that, the next thing we can do is we can get the iterative data using a get element by tag name, and over here we have specified the book. Once we have the data, we can use a for loop in order to iterate over it, and once we iterate it, we can use a get element by tag, and we can specify the tag name and the value that we wanted to extract. Once we have the value, we can simply use a print function to print the data present inside the tag. So now if we run this code, we will be getting a data which is present inside the bookdata.xml. Now before proceeding further, if you are new to this channel, make sure you subscribe. Also, all the code that I am going to discuss in this video, you can find that in the Medium blog that I have posted. You can find the link of this in the description section. Now let's see how we can use LXML in order to parse an XML data. Now in order to use this library, you have to first import it. So for that you can simply run this command onto your terminal. Okay, and once it got successfully installed onto your system, the next thing you can do is you can simply use a import statement in order to import this library. Once you do that, the same thing we have to do over here. We can use a parse method present in this in order to create a elementary object. Okay, once we have the tree, the next thing we have to do is we have to get the root element. So for that we can use a getRoot method. So this function gives a root element of an XML file. Okay, so once we have the root element, we can use a find all method in order to get a list of element present in the XML tree. Once we get all the element, the next thing we have to do is we can simply iterate over each element and read the data present in the XML document. Okay, so for that we can use a for loop, and we will be iterating over the item present in this. And to extract each of the values present inside the tag, we can simply use a find function. Once we get the value, we can use a print function and specify the value we wanted to print. Now if we run this code, we will be getting all the data present inside this XML document. Okay, you have to first install it into your system. For that, you can simply run this command onto your terminal. After that, you can simply import that library. Once you do that, the next thing you have to do is you have to open the XML file that you wanted to read. Once you do that, the next thing you have to do, you have to create a beautiful soap object. And after that, we need a data, right? So for that, we will be using a find all function. After that, we will be using a for loop, and we will be using a find function, and as a parameter we will be specifying the tag. And once we do that, we can use a print function to print the data that we have extracted. Now if you run this code, we will be getting the data present inside the XML document. I think this is the shortest code that you can write in order to read the data. So now if you wanted to use this library, the first thing that you have to do is you have to install it. For that, you can simply execute this command onto your terminal. So once you do that, you can import it using import statement. Pandas library has a method that directly read the data. Okay, now after that, you can simply use a print statement to print a data frame. Now if you run this code, you will get a data in the form of data frame. Okay, let's see the final approach, which is nothing but a 6 approach, wherein we will be using a pandas read XML library. Okay, in order to use this, you have to execute this command onto your terminal, and once this library get installed onto your system, the next thing you can simply import that library. Okay, and now in order to read the XML data, you have a read XML function which takes a 2 argument. Okay, the first one will be nothing but XML data, and the second one will be nothing but the data that you wanted to read. So over here we wanted to read a book date, so that's why we have specified a book. And lastly, you can use a print function to print this data. Now if you run this code, you will get the output in the form of list, and inside that, this is the first list element and this is the second list element. If you wanted to further get the individual data, then you have to treat this as a dictionary. You can go through this documentation library to get even deeper understanding. Okay, so they have given one example. Now let's say if you wanted to extract this data, let's using this library, which is nothing but a pandas read XML, then what you have to do, as a second argument, you have to specify first tag inside that second tag, and the third value will be the tag you want it as a root. Okay, and that what they have given over here as an example. Okay, that's it for this video. If you find this video helpful, make sure you like and share it with your friend.